Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय राधा काला चंदी राधा काला चंदी राधे, जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे, जय जय जगन्नाथ जगन्नाथ बलदेव, जय जय सुभद्रा, जय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय गौरनिताय, जय गौरनिताय, जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद, श्रील प्रभुपद, राधा कालाचंद जी भगवान की जय. From Canto 9, Chapter 3, Text 10. Chapter is entitled The Marriage of Sukanya and Chavana Muni. We'll recite the 10 words. And if you want to text 10. Yeah. And I don't know if there's a, yeah. Sukanya chavanam prapya patim paramakopanam prinayam asachittagnya apramattanuvrittibhi. Sukanya chavanam prapya patim paramakopanam prinayam asa chittagnya apramattanuvrittibhi.
Sukanya
Patim paramakopanam. Sukanya Chavanam Prapya. Translation. Chavana Muni was very irritable, but since Sukanya had gotten him as her husband, she dealt with him very carefully. According to his mood, she dealt with him very carefully according to his mood. Knowing his mind, she performed service to him without being bewildered. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is an indication of the relationship between husband and wife. A great personality like Chavana Muni has the temperament of always wanting to be in a superior position. Such a person cannot submit to anyone. Therefore, Chavana Muni had an irritable temper. His wife Sukanya could understand his attitude and understand the circumstances she treated him, understanding that under the circumstances she treated him accordingly. If any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. This is victory for a woman. Even in the dealings of Lord Krishna with his different queens, it has been seen that although the queens were the daughters of great kings, they placed themselves before Lord Krishna as his maid servants. However great a woman may be, she must place herself before her husband in this way. That is to say, she must be ready to carry out her husband's orders and please him in all circumstances. Then her life will be successful. When the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, their life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. In the modern day, the wife is never submissive, and therefore the home life is broken even by slight incidents. Either the wife or the husband may take advantage of the divorce law. According to the Vedic law, however, there is no such thing as divorce law, and a woman must be trained to be submissive to the will of her husband. Westerners contend that this is a slave mentality for the wife, but factually it is not. The it is the tactic by which a woman can conquer the heart of her husband, however irritable or cruel he may be. In this case, we clearly see that although Chavana Muni was not young, but indeed old enough to be Sukanya's grandfather, and was also very irritable, Sukanya, the beautiful young daughter of a king, submitted herself to her old husband and tried to please him in all respects. Thus, she was faithful and a chaste wife. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So, a very, I would say, unique purport and a very unique situation, a story in the Bhagavatam. So, the story, this particular chapter is entitled The Marriage of Sukanya and Chavana Muni. This passage of the Bhagavatam narrates the various dynasties of Manu, as we know. When Lord Brahma was given the duty of being the secondary creator after the Supreme Lord expanded himself in the Karanodakshaya Vishnu form, and then from his pores all the universes came out, and in each universe he entered as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And to start the universe, as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he further created first Lord Brahma, and from Lord Brahma came the Sanat Kumaras, Narad Muni, Lord Shiva, the 10 Prajapatis, and of course, eventually he also created this form of life called man and woman. That's why Swayambhu Manu was the first man, like we in the in the parlance of Bible, the Adam and Eve. So they were Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa. The Manu and then the dynasties of the Manu. The Bhagavatam gives some descriptions. It stops where necessary and then keeps giving just the listing of the historic lineage of different of how the mankind progressed. So here it very briefly the narration stops at the one of the sons of Manu, Shariyati. He's a king, and as a king, of course, these are Vedic times when the mode of goodness was more prevalent. So everything around was according to the mode of goodness. And in the times of the mode of goodness, obviously the responsibility of the king is also to make sure that all the saints, the rishis, the munis are respected and they are taken care of. And so once the king took his soldiers and his daughter and everybody to meet Chavanamuni in the ashram of Chavanamuni, and his daughter Sukanya was with her friends. And typically, when you are with your friends, you're always in a lighter mood. You want to have some fun. You be a little frivolous. And in that mood, she was walking around the ashram of Chavanamuni, and she was collecting fruits and flowers. And she saw there was a hole. It was supposed to be the hole where earthworms will dig holes and go in. And by the act of providence, as given in the Bhagavatam, she saw like two luminaries, like two things inside, and she, with a thorn, she poked into the hole. And suddenly, as a reaction to that, the king's soldiers and the army, they started feeling like a great pressure on their abdomen, meaning on their bladder, and they couldn't pass urine and stool. That is the description given in the first 10 verses. And the king immediately realized that something has not gone right. So he asked, and his daughter with honesty mentioned that, I ended up doing this like an offense. It's almost like an act of providence. And due to that, the king immediately realized that this has been an offense. So they went to Chavanamuni, and Chavanamuni explained that it was me who was performing meditation in that hole. And the king immediately realized that to pacify him, he said that you should marry my daughter, Sukanya. And she agreed, and he gets married. So that is the up to this point. Of course, the story continues where eventually Chavanamuni is so old, he feels that since he married a young girl or a young woman, he should also get his youth back. So he requests the Ashwini Kumaras, they are the doctors of the demigods. They had some way, they took him to some lake and performed certain ablutions and processes by which he actually regained his youth. That is the story. That's where the story actually ends. And then it continues. But through the purport and through the story, as we are trying to learn as sincere sadhakas on the path of bhakti, for us, it's our responsibility to understand and learn whatever Srila Prabhupada has shared with us in these purports. And of course, if we understand, there is a concept of time, place, and circumstance also. If you see the description, and of course the Vedic times that are mentioned, uh, the Vedic system was very holistic. Like, obviously, the very first understanding for the Vedic system is that we are not these bodies, we are eternal souls, we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And this whole consciousness of being a man or a woman is just a facilitation of being the tertiary creator. After Lord Brahma created the 8.4 million species of life, there was this concept of having a male and a female in each species of life, so that they become tertiary creators to continue the progeny. But the Vedic parlance always insisted on the fact that, in one sense, Krishna is the only Purusha and everything else is the Prakriti, right? And that is true. Purusha means one who is a supreme controller, enjoyer, and proprietor. And unfortunately, due to whatever impure desires, the living entities who want to be a Purusha, it cannot be possible in the spiritual realm. So the Lord has to create this situation. He has to create this world where the souls are given this false illusion to try to be the proprietor, controller, and enjoyer. And hence, this whole material world is designed to give that opportunity to the soul to be for like an illusionary experience of being a proprietor, controller, and enjoyer. As part of that design, sometimes the soul takes the form of, or the body of a man, or sometimes the body of a woman. So within the Vedic parlance, when this became a design to become, the Lord also created the various, I would say, the means to reach the Lord, right? So that's where the Varna and Ashram came into picture. It is by design that the Lord, through the means of the three modes of material nature, there are just three dials: the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So to the extent you turn those on, there is a mixture, and accordingly it creates different things. Similarly, like if you were to give the example, there are three primary colors: red, green, and what, blue, yellow. Yellow. And a painter, an expert painter, uses a paintbrush and he'll mix it and create different colors. So the paintbrush is like the time which sets the three modes into motion, and then different things are created. Similarly, in Satyuga, accordingly, when the time is predominantly Satyuga, then there are certain things that manifest. When the time is more of passion, different things manifest. Similarly, the ashram, the Varna and ashram, is a function of these three dials. Right? Some people would be more Brahminical, meaning they will have more influence of the mode of goodness, the Sattva Guna. Some would be a little less Sattva Guna and a little Rajaguna, so they will be more Kshatriya. And all these functions are by design. It is not by random things that happens. It's all given. And to facilitate that design, the Lord also provides those kind of abilities and qualities. So coming to this particular purport, as we see that, like, the emphasis through this purport and this story is on being obedient and subservient. And the aspect of chastity is explained. So if we read this purely from a perspective of a practical thing in today's day and age, the question may come is, why is it that only the woman has to exhibit subservience or obedience? Why can't it be the man? And as Kali Yuga progresses, there was enough there is enough uh, thrust on equality, women liberation, and so on and so forth. So these principles in today's time, day and age seem to be questionable, in the sense that how is it that the expectation is that only the woman, but it's not the case. Actually, the Vedic system, it is only in this purport and in this passage, this description and explanation is there, but the Vedic system is very clear about how it's an equal responsibility for both, especially the very perspective of grahastha ashram in Vedic system is very sacred. It is not intended for frivolous, or it's like giving freedom to whatever we want to do, to with our mind and senses, whatever based on our prarabdha karma. Everybody gets a certain level of opulence, a certain level of intelligence, a certain level of health, physical health, mental health, intellectual health. Of course, spiritual health and spirituality is beyond prarabdha. It is mercy. It is the mercy of our gurus. It is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. It is the mercy of our lineage and our immediate gurus. But this grahastha ashram is not meant for purely satisfying all our desires. It is, of course, there is the concept of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, where the four purpose or the four goals of human life have been given in the Vedic Shastras. Unfortunately, as time passes, dharma and moksha, the two sides are dropped, only artha and kama remain. But the emphasis is not necessarily only on dharma, artha, kama, especially for those who are sadhakas, those who are on the path of spirituality, of bhakti. More than dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the focus is on the pancham purushartha, which is prema, developing the unalloyed love of the Lord. When the 80,000 sages, they all requested Suta Goswami to speak the Bhagavatam, they said, they gave the symptoms of the people of Kali Yuga, right? Prayena alpayusha sabhya kalau asmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrita. The four principles were given, that they are always unlucky, misguided, lazy, and disturbed. So what is the easiest, and then what is the goal? So savai punso paro dharmo yatho bhakti rajokshaje yayati supratisati I'm sorry, I missed that. But anyway, the unalloyed love, unconditional love to the Supreme Lord is what the Pancham Purushartha is. And that is what the design is. When we speak about the chastity of a woman, it is in the context of this final goal, that in the end, as grahastha ashram. If you think about it, the grahastha ashram revolves around the importance of the woman in the family. Otherwise, it's not grahastha. Otherwise, it has to be a brahmachari ashram or a vanaprastha ashram or a sannyasa ashram. How is the grahastha ashram distinguished from the other ashrams? It is the presence of the woman, and her responsibility towards the family. And of course, as I keep saying, there is an equal responsibility of the husband also. The Shastras say that the husband is supposed to provide the protection. He is supposed to provide for the means, the physical support, the emotional support, the spiritual support that is needed. And similarly for the wife, it's a similar. I would say sometimes it is a higher responsibility. And why is it higher? Because they are endowed with those higher qualities. If you think about it, at least that is something which I think most of us experience, that women have greater intuitiveness, they have greater intelligence, they have more grace, they're graceful, they are more, overall, the aspects of cleanliness, discipline, beauty, grace are held together through the responsibilities of the women. Mm. And the Grihastha ashram and the Vedic parlance tries to highlight this. And we all know that, in essence, like there's a saying, like the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Mm. There's so much responsibility to grow. Like we see these great personalities, like so many saintly personalities who achieved perfection of life by achieving the goal of love of God. There has to be an element of being brought up. The Vedic scriptures talk about the Garbhadan Samskara. They talk about how in the womb of the mother, the soul actually absorbs a lot of consciousness of the mother as he is growing in the body of the mother. So all these responsibilities are very prevalently, they are underlined in the Bhagavatam. I mean in the scriptures. And in return of these, there's always a benediction that is given, right? Uh, so the chastity of a woman, first of all, the principles of chastity that are explained are being pleasing, being given like a certain level of uh, talking very pleasingly, being very supportive, being very uh, obedient in that sense. It doesn't mean that uh, you have to be obedient to the extent that if somebody is misbehaving or there is an abuse, then that has to be corrected in a practical sense. But of course, to the extent we follow it, like there is this concept of doing, you do the right thing. The world around is meant to test us. The circumstances of this material world in our life are meant to check how much we understand these systems, these injunctions, and how much we are able to follow it. And if we are able to follow it, and Krishna is pleased with that, we are passing the test, the circumstances change around us. And we've, as somebody who has, uh, in my little experience of uh, being a Bhakti Rickshaw leader when I was back in Bloomington, Illinois, for 5-8 years, we were uh, given the service of taking care of a certain number of families. And I would always notice that the woman or the lady, she was more inclined to spirituality, trying to come up to the process of bhakti. And sometimes it was not conducive. In the husband was not conducive, the children had no interest. And the way they stuck to their devotional service of making beautiful preparations for the Lord, offering it to the Lord, spiritualizing the food, and just by giving that that spiritualized food, prasadam, it changed the hearts of people. I have seen that practically in a Bhakti Rickshaw setting, where just by the devotion of the lady in the house, the whole environment changed. The husband was a meat eater, the husband was not interested, or the children were not interested, but eventually they accepted the process of bhakti. So that aspect is there. The chastity suggests being pleasing, being subservient, being obedient. The Shastras go to the extent of saying that for a chaste woman, not thinking of anybody else other than their husband, not even like it is said that they should dress their best only in front of their husband. Of course, these things don't really gain relevance in today's day and age, where things have changed, where women have to work. You cannot say that I'll go out dressed shabbily. You have to be presentable. So, like I said, the concept of desha kala patra has to be applied, time, place, and circumstance. And within the ultimate goal, like through all these debatable suggestions, thoughts, injunctions, the essence is to understand that each person or whatever role we are playing, the essential goal is to attain the love of God through service. And that is what it is. And there are beautiful stories. There are so many stories throughout the scriptures about the gains of being a chaste woman. First of all, the scriptures suggest or mention that just by being uh, subservient or uh, obedient or being pleasing in this family setting, the woman gains, the wife gains 50% of the pious deeds of the husband, even if they do not do anything. And on the other hand, if the husband or the man does not uh, regulate or does not uh, facilitate a good uh, atmosphere in the house, anything wrong that is done, he or she he takes 50% of the sin. And that's a Vedic injunction. If you see, it also states for the king or the ruling leaders, if there is something that happens within the kingdom, the king takes 25% of the sin. And why is it so? Because he is supposed to create it such a way that such sinful activities do not happen. But it's considered like an irresponsibility on the king's part, and hence 25% of the sinful reaction goes to the king. Similarly, in the family setting, if the husband is not able to, like, there is a responsibility, is what we are underlining here, that 50% of the sinful activities the husband has to take. And if just by being obedient, 50% of the pious activities, whatever the husband does, um, the woman gets. And the story, I mean, there are a couple of classic stories that I could think of that come to my mind. The one story is about Vrinda Devi and Shankararanya. I think most of us know, but for the context of today's session lesson, the story is it starts in the spiritual realm, where one time Lord Krishna, um, in the divine Leela, of course, he developed some affection to the gopi, Viraja, who also is he also flows in a liquid form, separating the material and the spiritual sky. So, obviously, in her possessiveness, because she's the ultimate rasa she's the Ladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani. She, in her ultimate love for the Lord, she doesn't want anybody, like the Lord, to be affectionate to anybody. And when she learns that Krishna is developing some affection to Viraja, she starts chastising Krishna and saying things about Krishna. And her brother Sridama happens to hear this, and being a friend to Lord Krishna, Sridama starts to chastise Radharani, saying that, how can you say that to my friend, to Krishna? Of course, we have to enter or get into the consciousness of the divine pastimes and Braja Leela to understand these. It's not easy otherwise, Like in the Braja, in the spiritual sky, Krishna is not treated as the Supreme Lord. He's in his Swabhav, he's not in his Prabhav. Prabhav is for the external world. Like we all of us are, if you see, when we step out of the house, we take on a certain type of behavior, a certain consciousness. We are a little different when we step out of the house, and we are a little different when we are within the house. We are more relaxed, we are sahaja, we are a little easy inside the house because it's a family setting. So, for the Lord, being in Brajadham, whether it is the Bhaumid Brajadham or in the spiritual Brajadham, he's sahaja, he's easygoing. So he exhibits all these tendencies which are very bewildering if we think of him as a supreme. And for this, the same applies to Srimati Radharani and Krishna both. So Radharani exhibits that humanly tendency to be possessive, and then she is He gets angry, and Sridama is eventually cursed. Big by Radharani, that, and of course the story is that he had an affection to Vrinda Devi. So Radharani understood it. So they were both cursed to, for a very, I would say from a spiritual perspective, it's all fraction of a second. That's what we hear from our acharyas also, that when we return to the spiritual world, it feels as if it was just a tiny bit of time we were away from our relationship with the Lord. But for right now, it feels like it's eternity. Lifetimes after lifetimes of experience, the birth and death, experiencing different attachments to different bodies as being husband or wife or parents or children. It's all going on. This it's a reel going on continuously on the mental plane. But of course, so for a very short while, they were in the spiritual perspective, they were cursed to be out of the spiritual sky, and they took birth as Tulasi. And Jalandhar, he became the king Jalandhar, also known as Shankachud. And Tulasi was so chaste, she was very austere, and she was very chaste. And just by the dint of her chastity, even though he was a demon, he was a demoniac person, he was receiving the benefits of the chastity of Tulasi. So every time he would go out on a war, even though he was born in a demon dynasty, every time he would go out on a war, Tulasi would, being very chaste and austere, she would perform her puja archana to their deities of Lord Vishnu, of Lord Narayan, and then she would take the garland and give it to her husband. And he would wear that garland and go and fight the war. And because of that, he would never be defeated. Just the power of her chastity always protected him in the war. And with that, he became so powerful that eventually he started challenging even the demigod, even Lord Shiva. And then Lord Shiva had to go to Lord Vishnu and say, please help. We have to figure something out. Otherwise, this will go out of hand, from a worldly order perspective. So then Lord Vishnu, story goes, as he actually disguised, or he took the form of Shankachuda when he was away, and he broke the chastity of Tulasi. And when she got to know, she became very angry, and she said, you acted like a stone-hearted person to break my chastity, so you will become a stone. And of course, it is all the pastimes of the Lord. So he accepted that curse, and he became a mountain in Nepal, from where those rocks fall down in the river Gandaki, and through that, those particular insects, I forgot the name, some insects, they carved the beautiful different forms in the Shaligram form of the Lord. So that's how, and then the Lord also gave her the benediction that I will not accept any bhoga unless you are offered in it. So his hair became Tulsi, and her hair. So that's the chastity. And of course, there are many stories, but in the interest of time, I'll just summarize that. Even like the story of Satyavan Savitri, where she had the power of her chastity, she could bring back her dead husband. And essentially, to summarize, the aspect is not about who is subservient to whom, and chastity has to be equal, both on the male and the female, husband and wife side. The essence is, how can we engross ourselves in the aspect of serving, the mood of service, in the humble way, in the humility. When we serve, Krishna himself says in the Bhagavatam, Aham Bhakta Paradhina. Actually, bhakti is nothing but a competition between the Lord and his devotees. The devotee who is superior in worshipping, glorifying, and making the other person controlled by the emotions of the other person. So the devotees, they please the Lord so much that he becomes subservient to the desires. The Lord, he's standing. Lord Rishi Kalachandji is standing for, so like, if you think about it, he's Chaitanya. It is wrong to think that he's in a deity form and not Chaitanya. He's out of the love for of the devotees. He's standing there all the time. He's playing his flute. We cannot hear it, but he's playing his flute. But if we develop that love, we can hear his flute. We can feel his emotions, and that is the highest aspect of the love of the Lord, where we don't ask anything from the Lord. We give him. We care for him. And that is what makes the Lord subservient to his devotee. And that is the principle that can be applied in a smaller realm of the Grihastha ashram, where through our service, we think of our family members as expansions of the Lord, which is true. Everything is an expansion. Ekoham bahusyama. The Lord desired to be multifold. He expanded himself into millions and trillions. We are all parts and parcels of Krishna. So why can't we think of based on our karmic and prarabdha, we have a certain set of souls whom we have given most association. Why can't we think of them as the Swarup? They are Krishna in a certain form. And why can't we serve them? That should be the mood. And in that, I think as a team, to conclude, I feel that Grihastha ashram is a three-legged race. It's like, kids, they play in school, they'll tie two kids, one leg each, and they have to race. So unless you match, you will fall down. The team which wins are those who hop along properly. If you try to be faster than the other, then that team falls down. Or slower, either ways. So I feel, at my 2 cents, that it's a very sacred ashram, irrespective of the chastity for one rule or the other. The ultimate goal should be how can we as a team reach the finish line to attain the complete love of the Lord and make him subservient to that level. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anybody wants to share? It's late, but any thoughts or any suggestions? Okay. Sorry, Prabhuji is saying we can continue since we started late. So most welcome for sharing your thought. And
wow, what a purport by Srila Prabhupada. Right? I was thinking that you really get a sense when you read a purport like this that everybody has a natural desire for some influence. We want to influence this. We want to influence the workplace. It's natural, right? Because Krishna is the ultimate influencer, right? So we got a little bit of desire for that influence also. And we can hear from Srila Prabhupada the art of submission, right? How to actually have the influence that we're desiring. I was thinking when I was hearing this, I was like, every once in a while, my wife will come up to me and she's like, she gives me her pet name. Hey, honey, you're so strong. You got the biggest muscles. And I'm just like, wait, what? What? Wait, what's going on? I really could use help moving this thing. Would you do it? And you know what's going on, right? You know that, but you can't help it. You're like, okay, yes, I'll do it. But if my wife comes up to me and is like, you're just sitting there, would you mind helping me or something like that? Like automatically there's this, And I was thinking that similarly at the workplace, we're trying to work as a team, right? And so we have to be submissive to the boss or the leader. And so I was just thinking about how in our Vedic tradition, we have this wonderful ways that how we can influence nicely to work together for the ultimate purpose of serving Krishna, right? Sure. I was thinking that we could have a workshop called the Art of Submission. And we can all find out how we can embrace submissive behavior instead of this enviness that keeps us from pushing it away. I don't, I don't want anybody controlling me. I don't want to ask anybody. I don't want to do anything that anybody wants. It just causes so much friction, It's so judgmental. Hare Krishna.
No, thank you so much for questioning. Definitely. I mean, just to add to that thought, when I was thinking of this injunctions, I was thinking, why would Krishna? Because it's all by design. Why would Krishna have the women with this type of thing? Because if you think about it, in a family setting, if you have kids, when we have kids, and imagine like out of the 2 or 3 or 4, how many kids you have. If we know by nature certain kids are more belligerent, if I were to use the word, and one of them is a little more mature, and whom would you give the instructions to? You would give it to the child who would listen to you, who has the ability to take that position, to be more humble and submissive. So I feel by design, women are in that category. They are more tolerant, they are more intelligent, they are more subservient, and hence the instructions are for them.
I was thinking at like the workplace when you're the leader, or you see. I think we've all been in the position where we've been at work and we see that employee that's envious of the boss, and they're always challenging the boss, and you're like, dude, why are you causing so much problems for yourself and us? But then you can see the person who has a natural, nice respect for the boss, who's submissive to a certain degree, but also carries themselves with respect and stuff like that. And then the boss wants to work with that, right? That person moves up the ladder so easily, But the leader also can see that there's a desire for this person to lead too. They can see the eagerness for it. And so them not being envious of the employee even, they say, hey, come on, I will help you. I'll teach you to be a leader. I'll help you grow,
Yes.
And
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I have a question. Sometimes I wonder about this. And in the beginning of the purport, it was saying that that by nature the man wants to be in control, right? So I was just thinking that we often hear that that a male body is like a superior birth, is a more fortunate birth than taking birth in a female body. But then there's all these difficult natures, like that you want to be in control, and the ego and things like that males struggle with. So is the male birth superior only in the material sense? Because spiritually it seems like a big disadvantage to always want to be in control, when actually the goal is to accept Krishna as the supreme controller and I'm just the servant. Whereas for women it's like, you have to cultivate a consciousness of I'm here to assist you, I'm the servant, I'm the submissive one, and those tend to lend themselves more towards spiritual advancement, when we apply them in relation to Guru and Krishna and devotees. So, yeah, my question is, how is the male birth superior?
So, being conditioned of being in a male consciousness, I can say that yes, it is a great disadvantage for sure. Because if you think about it, you rightly said, Mataji, the whole aspect of, if we have to exit this material world, we have to become subservient. We have to reach that level of consciousness where there is one enjoyer, and we all are meant to enhance the enjoyment of the Lord. So the male ego is very big, I can tell you that. It is not easy. It is more natural in the being in a. Of course, as I said, there are different endowments. In the female body, the physical prowess may be less, but I feel, like I said, which is I think more important, is the emotional strength, the maturity in that sense, the intuitiveness. I mean, it is well known that women are more intuitive. They have that. So that's it's. If I were to put it this way, we all know that the highest form of love was exhibited by the gopis of Vrindavan. And even Uddhava was sent backpacking with all his knowledge. Uh, so, in that sense, to think of being subservient to the Lord, it was so natural and easy for the gopis, even though they were not even like, they were like simple village ladies. You know. So that nature helped to become subservient. But for the male, sometimes it's conditioning to, as I said, in the absolute sense, even to feel that I am in a female, or I'm female, or I'm male, it itself is a conditioning in one sense. But there is an endowment which is more suitable to the principles of devotion, which I feel helps more. It's not that women or men are not great devotees, they are, but the challenge is there. And uh, of course, it's all mercy. End of the day, whether we are in a male body or a female body, the factor that works is mercy. The To the extent we are able to follow the instructions of the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, to that extent we purify ourselves. Everything is a process of purification. It doesn't matter. And if you think about it, in today's, as Kali Yuga progresses, we have to deal with a lot of other complications. There is wokeism. There are people who don't identify with any of the gender in today's day and age. How do you even apply those Vedic principles? There are same-sex marriages. How do you apply those principles? So that's why the time, place, and circumstance. And for devotees, I think, I mean, trying to summarize my answer to your question is, my answer, it may be subjective, but my subjective answer is yes. I think that there is no inferiority. In fact, the endowments that you mentioned are actually more conducive. In that sense, materially it may feel inferior, but spiritually it is superior. So that's my answer.
I guess, I mean, someone's got to take charge, right? So things aren't going to work if someone's got to kind of make decisions and be strong and, lead the charge kind of thing. So those masculine qualities are necessary and helpful for the family and the society. I mean, you're a male, so I think you're being careful. But, I mean, we all value men, and we're happy that we have men in our lives. And men play a very important role in society. I like how you kind of give a transcendental perspective in the beginning, that in terms of creation, that there have to be males and females for the purpose of tertiary creation and bringing souls into this world who need to be in this world, but that those are just kind of like temporary roles that we play functionally in the Lord's plan for creation, and that ultimately we're all, Prakriti. And that just like in the same way that Sukanya had to, even though her husband was sometimes irritable and grumpy and maybe a little harsh with her, she just had to go on serving him. So in the same way as souls, as we all need to come to this. That's the goal, is Ashlishya Vaparatam Pranashtimama Darshanama. That however Krishna, even if Krishna handles us roughly by his embrace or tramples us under his feet, still we're going to serve him unconditionally. So, yeah, that's our position as Prakriti, is to take that submissive attitude. However the Lord treats us, whatever situation, whatever he does, I'm still his servant. I still love him. I'm still going to be here for him. And that's the perfection of our devotion.
Sure. Thank you so much for the additional.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for yet another wonderful class. It was such a sobering topic, and you were very sensitive in the way you handled it. But when, for those of us who are in female bodies, are reading or raising daughters, you mentioned that this is according to time, place, and circumstance. Yet it is to be noted that Prabhupada wrote all of this in his purpose. So it's not that it happened. So he mentioned all of this in his purport. It wasn't the translation. So even if it feels a little, difficult, how high the standard, I think it's just very sobering for us to accept that we're not there. And, this is what is the right thing. Just like in anything, we know what the standard is. We may never get there, but it's just sobering to accept that if we get to that standard, it's very pleasing. And so no matter how, challenging, what about men? What about, you know, as a female when we read it, as a mother when we read it, you know,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mother. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel that, like even what Priya Mataji was mentioning, that no matter what, like do the right thing concept, if we can understand, keep that in the back of our mind and the purpose behind it, we have to tolerate. End of the day, and like even Prabhuji was mentioning, that men experience that in the professional setting, and nowadays women also work, they also experience it. But you have to like do the concept of the boss is always right. If you want to progress, right? Even in the material sense. So yeah. So and I feel that to the extent the person is able to exhibit this, because this is what is given in the scriptures, to that extent they become more and more worshipable. There is a certain power that comes, like we saw in these examples, that it endows, it is bound to, if you follow the injunctions, it will give you the result. Whether on the practical level it doesn't seem to, it's a matter of time. And then that is the only way to go past the wall of ego, right? Being subservient, we cannot challenge the egos. If we do, it becomes difficult. And that's why it's a purificative process also. The Shastra, the Grahastha ashram is also, the whole human life is a purificative process. Our egos are meant to be crushed and humiliated at some point in time. It can come in different forms. It can come in the form of family setting, it can come in the form of professional setting, it can come in the form of health settings, it can come in the form of financial settings. The whole idea is to eventually Krishnarpanamastu, that I am yours, my Lord, please take care of me. Please give me a safe passage back to the spiritual world. That's all our consciousness should be. But thank you for sharing that, Maji. Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much for the very nice class, Prabhu, and the nice discussion afterwards. Whenever this topic comes up, I'm always reminded how Srila Prabhupada said so many times that in Kali Yuga we're all Sudras, ultimately, right? We're all so fallen. And I was thinking in this purport specifically, Prabhupada's talking about a very exalted personality also, Chaitanya Muni, right? And that, I speaking for myself, I have so many faults and so many shortcomings. And I think, the standard that we're looking for, I agree with what Tulsi Saki Mataji was saying, if I understood her correctly, that it's a very elevated standard that Prabhupada's talking about. And we're talking about very elevated personalities also.